A great offseason by Jacksonville Jaguars owner Shad Khan has him a fan favorite again and is once again a rock star. I'll tell you why here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
There's no doubt about that. It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. I have covered the Jaguars through various entities over the last 2 decades, and I'm glad to be the host of this podcast today. We bring it to you wherever you can get it. That's right. Wherever you can get your podcast, make sure you tap into that location, whether it's watching or listening, and we will be there because we take pride in it being your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Hello and shout out to the everydayers. And if you're a newcomer, I'm glad you're here. Hopefully, I'll give you a reason to come on and kick back for the next 28 minutes. So here's what we're going to go over. We're going to end this show and land on the runway. Lesson learned by yours truly. Loyalty is honorable, and that is something that we will discuss right smack in the middle, but we will start at the top of the show talking about Shad Khan, and he is a rock star again here in Jacksonville, Florida, because he had a big offseason. I will tell you this. There's an episode of this show, if you go back to the day that they announced that Doug Peterson was going to get fired, I will quote and say that I said Shad Khan was the worst owner in professional sports. It was a little harsh. It was a little emotional. But I will tell you this. I meant every word of it that day. And I ain't going to backtrack off of how I felt at that time. I thought that it was more of the same. All right. I thought that this was more of the same in terms of not wanting to go all the way and do all of the things that you're supposed to do or that you should do in order to change this franchise from a bad franchise to a good franchise. So, yeah, I mean, a lot had to happen for the Jaguars to change. I never, ever, ever thought that Shad did not have the enthusiasm, or I never thought that he would be willing to do any and everything to get this thing on track. And they haven't played a game yet, so I'm going to caution everybody. This is me not waiting until things actually happen on the field to say this. And I'll tell you a reason why in just a second. But I never questioned him as in fact, I never questioned him as a winner. In fact, when you win at life, when you work at a company while you're in college, and then you end up owning that company and turning it into $1 billion entity, and when you win the way he has off the field and on the field in other sports like soccer and just in life, you're yoked a certain way, right? The money that he spent in free agency is crazy. What he did for Urban Meyer was what all coaches would want. The way that he delegates authority and doesn't get in the way and gives the coaches and gives the GM and everybody else the resources that they need, all of those things are very, very good things and admirable. I just thought he was giving it to the wrong people. And I thought he was giving it to the wrong people who were doing the status quo things, with the exception of Urban Meyer, and that was just a disaster because there wasn't anything status quo about Urban Meyer. I just think Shad used to be really, really tepid, and what I mean by that is he'd stick his toe in a little bit, but wouldn't commit all the way to an action, and then you would have two actions working in two different directions. I think that's what happened when in 2017 or 16-17, when he brought Tom Coughlin back, they had a little bit of success. But those drafts under Tom Coughlin, where he was kind of overseeing a lot that was going on, are some of the worst that they had. We didn't even talk about the players they picked. We talked about the players that they let go. I mean, that they passed over and didn't take. One of them's in Baltimore. He's two-time MVP, Lamar Jackson. It's stuff like that, and then extending Blake Bortles and all of this stuff. It was just like you were trying to get Dave over the hump with someone who had a whole bunch of credibility as a coach, but not necessarily that much as a personnel person. So it was really, really weird. I thought it was a good move at the time. Turns out it wasn't that great of a move. And then when you let him go, you had Dave and Doug Marrone and Dave Caldwell sitting up there not knowing what it was supposed to look like and knowing that you can't get certain coaches to come here in a situation where everyone is a 1 year lame duck. I just thought it was never complete. And I wanted him to go all the way with some changes. And he never, ever, 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 ever did it. And then he had that press conference that day when they announced that Doug Peterson wasn't going to be here and he was going to keep Trent Baalke. And I lost my mind. Rightfully. And so did the fans. I'm not going to sit here and say that my actions or the fans' actions or any other thing had anything to do with him backtracking a few weeks later, a couple of weeks later. I think the process of going through those coaches, I can't tell you for a fact that I heard that anyone said, I'm not going to come there if Trent is still there. But I can tell you that some reputable people that I know said that was kind of the case. But then there were others that said, no, it wasn't necessarily like that. But whether or not it was said or not, I think he realized the writing was on the wall. And then it wasn't even about what was said. I think he saw this process where the coaches were getting hired, going through these interviews and hearing this word alignment and the effectiveness of it, and then looking where all of those people came from, and that's how they were operating. I think if anything, even if you don't believe the other things are true, I think if anything, he saw that and said that's what he wanted. And when he realized that's what he wanted, he also realized at the same time that if he was going to obtain that, he had to let go of this. This was Trent. This was that whole old way. Can you imagine? And one of the reasons I yelled from the rafters about this stuff, can you imagine if Trent Baalke was still the GM? I bet you if he had the last say, there would be no Travis Hunter. I bet you if he had the last say, there would be no Diami Brown. I bet you if he had the last say, a whole bunch of the moves that were made, well, they wouldn't even look anything like that. It would have looked like the old stuff. And then you got a new coach, and it probably wouldn't have been Liam Cohen, or even if it would have. I don't think the communication would be the same, not only with the media, but with the players. I don't think the enthusiasm would be the same. It would just be totally different. So I kind of feel like I'm justifying myself by saying he's the worst owner in sports. I ain't really mean all that. He had a good offseason. He had a really, really good offseason. And it isn't because he did what I think or thought he should have done, because he's done exactly what I have been screaming for 2 or 3 years. Anybody who came in my barbershop or listened to me, I would always point at these other teams and their staffs and how they were and how in line everything was and how many people that they had quality control, everything. The Jaguars did it. It wasn't just one or two people over there making a decision. No, we got an entire brain trust. I love watching these big $1 million homes get built. You know what they have? That homes that aren't as big as they do, they have a whole room and a closet, sort of like one of those super mega yachts do too, where they have the brains of the house. And it's all of these things. It ain't just one person. It's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And I think that's the way the Jaguars are yoked up right now. And that's why I love it. I'm going to tell you why loyalty is a very honorable thing, and I'm going to point out some good things that Shad had done before this offseason and tell you and start the transition to what he did this offseason that's going to make this Jaguar season so special for a whole lot of people. We'll talk about it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Woo, we going to Game 7, baby. It is Game 7 in the NBA, and I'm telling you right now, it is in full swing, and you want to get in on that action right now because it is for all the marbles. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win you some big time Skrilla. Who's going to be, man? Who's going to be the statistical whiz? I'm telling you, you can get in on it now. Game 7, Oklahoma City and Indiana. You need to be on it. Here's what you got to do if you want to play FanDuel, and you should. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets, and I'm not playing. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Locked on Jaguars here, rolling along on a Friday. Shad Khan is a rock star again, just because he made some moves. He didn't make those moves because of me. I can guarantee you that. I'm not telling you people don't hear the podcast, but what I am telling you is Shad Khan ain't gonna move like that because he's a winner. He's a winner in life. He just hasn't won a lot here in Jacksonville. So I cannot be a hypocrite. I've been sitting here for 3 years telling you they should do this, and this. Turns out they made a whole bunch of moves, not identical to what I thought they should be doing, but in that wheelhouse where they did this, and this. So if that happens, I can't still sit here with good credibility and tell you he's still the worst owner in sports. He just did what I thought he should have done 3 weeks late, or 3 years and 3 weeks late. And it doesn't mean that it's going to work. It doesn't mean that I think, or I thought this whole time that he should have done exactly what he's doing. No, I wasn't a part of those interviews. The names aren't the people. Remember, it was Ben Johnson and Ian Cunningham. They ended up with Liam Cohen and James Gladstone. So right there tells you it ain't who I thought it was going to be. Even though I did start hearing Liam Cohen's name around November. But what I will say is I have to give him some credit for something that he did that I didn't like him doing. He was extremely loyal to everyone who deserved it from a certain standpoint. He wasn't loyal to Urban Meyer. He didn't deserve any loyalty. But everyone else, whether it be Dave Caldwell, Gus Bradley, ever since he bought this team, man, he's been loyal to him. Now, I thought it was loyalty to a fault, but that is an honorable trait. There's an honorable characteristics for an owner, just like not meddling and staying back. But there's sometimes, and this is how, while I give him credit for that, there's sometimes when loyalty can be blind, and there's sometimes something else is needed, and that's something else that I'm talking about. People want you to stand in the paint, man. They need to hear your voice. They need to see your face. Not just when it's about hiring and firing, or when it's new and enthusiastic, and not just when it's about a stadium being built, which is the part, I think, of him becoming a rock star again, the new stadium that's going on in the Four Seasons, because that signals something else, and I'll touch on that in segment 3. But they needed to hear from him, because the people who were in charge had started to be a little snippy. They started to be a little, they started to get a little snobby, talking down at folks, acting like, saying stuff, well, we do this for real. Nobody, we've done this in my track record. Dude, your track record is your record. Your one loss record on and off the field. And Trent Baalke had a losing record as a GM. Don't sit here and tell me about your track record and the fact that other people ain't doing this, when you getting your head bashed in every single week. And that's all the Jaguars had. You even had, I heard Tony Khan on radio one time, and Tony said, I don't have nothing to do with the decisions made over there, man. I run analytics and I'm running my wrestling company. Even he got away from the foolishness. And that's on the flagship station. I heard him say it. He even let y'all know, and that's why I got mad when everybody kept tweeting him and atting Tony Khan. I'm like, the dude he's detached. He ain't got nothing to do with it, right? It ran its course, and now it appears that he is sort of involved in it and ingratiated in it when they have more people, but it seems like they got the right people, right? It seems like they really did get the right people this time. Loyalty is honorable, and I appreciate that. Can you imagine what's going to happen when they get, you notice I didn't say if, I said when they get this thing turned around and headed in the positive direction that everyone wants this thing to go in, And then when these guys start going and asking for stuff, and he's loyal. How about loyalty to the right people? That's when it really, really matters, right? And hopefully he got the right people in place. But I'm not going to sit here and wait and be results based. I'm going to tell you right now, he did the right thing. They have done all the right things. Now, do I believe he has the right people? Yes. Am I satisfied as a fan, as a person in the media, as someone who loves watching from a league standpoint, movement, coaches, staff building? Oh, I think they did a fabulous job. And I can't, in good faith, and as a person that comes on here and expects y'all to listen to my words and have good interaction with you, sit here and not really apologize, but at least explain why I called him the worst owner in sports, and now I'm calling him a rock star again. It's because it's never too late to do what you're supposed to do. I want to add something here. He has also made anyone in Jacksonville, and this is one of the things that I've always said, when the offseason comes, no matter how much fans love the fact that I was whooping on Trent Baalke, at some point you got to give him a chance. And I had this conversation with a good friend of mine all the time, and he says, "Man, why are you falling for that foolishness?" I'm not falling for anything. What I'm saying is, what I'm doing is saying he's done a lot of things. And in the offseason, when he made the move to totally clean house and start this process all over again, and it culminated with James Gladstone, who the fans love, Liam Cohen, who people relate to, the entire staff, and then the addition of all of the new players, mainly Travis Hunter. Shad became beloved and became a rock star on the field stuff. That Miller Electric Center that they opened up not long ago, I believe it's the second or third year. I think it's the second year of it being fully operational and open. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Great for the fan experience, great for the players. When they got approval for that stadium to be built, and they're working on the Four Seasons that's across the street on the river, it meant that all of the talk from a national perspective about him not keeping the team here was going to be gone forever, because he is showing billions of dollars in commitment to keep this team here in Jacksonville, right? And the proof is in the pudding. It happened. That alone made people endear themselves again to Shad Khan, as it should have. So we got to give people credit. We have to say that he has had probably the best offseason. The Urban Meyer offseason was pretty good too, because it created a lot of enthusiasm, but it was polarizing because it created a lot of, I don't know. So one of the things that made me do this today, I'll admit, it's another sport. It's basketball, and the Lakers were sold for $10 billion. And I'm thinking like, woo, it's a lot of money. But it took me back to something in my history when Jack Kent Cooke, who used to own those Lakers back in the 60s and the early 70s, before he sold them, I believe he sold them to Dr. Buss, or there may have been another transaction in between those two. Jack Kent Cooke was the owner of Washington. The Commanders now, they used to be the Washington football team. Before that, y'all know what they called them, and we ain't gonna talk about that too much. But other than the fact that y'all know, before the Jag, when I was a kid, I grew up a fan of that franchise. And all I know is that I was a kid, I started watching around 1977, right? And he was like a hero, but they had never won anything. I'm gonna tell you the point in my life that it changed, and why his existence made me reflect differently and look at Shad Khan totally different. I'm talking about Jack Kent Cooke and how it relates to Shad Khan and why it taught me a lesson. I'll tell you that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, third final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. I am Tony Wiggins, talking about Shad Khan being a rock star again. Some of the characteristics that he had, even while things were going poorly for the franchise, are honorable and admirable. It's just that I believe he was doing it and giving it to the wrong folks. Lesson learned. I try to make myself slow down. I always pride myself, because I'll be 56 years old here in about a week and a half, and I want to slow things down. I don't want to speed things up. I tell people that all the time, right? But I got sped up with my anger, with seeing Jacksonville lose, with knowing that people were playing right in folks' face, and then they had the nerve to be nasty about it. Well, I don't like bullies. I always hated them, and I always been the dude to say, I'll try it. Come on, let's fade. So I started fading the bully, right? And I got upset because I thought the person that I was fading the bully for here every day didn't go all the way and excavate the bullies out of the building, and they wanted to, because of their loyalty, would keep them in. And I look back and I said, God, he brought this team, from Wayne Weaver. He bought the team from Wayne Weaver back in like 2012, 2013. It's been 12 years, and this is pathetic. Jack Kent Cook was the owner of the team that I covered and that I watched as a fan as a kid. I remember they won the Super Bowl in 1982 with Joe Gibbs after having Jack Pardee and others be the coach. They went to 4 Super Bowls in 11 years. When they won in 1982, the first one in the Super Bowl era in Washington, I was there. He bought the team in 1974 outright. So it was 8 years, and the league was a little bit different. It was 8 years from the time he bought the team to the time that they won championships. I think that spoiled me a little bit. I think that spoiled me, and this is it's a lot harder these days to win Super Bowls for owners. You shouldn't expect an owner to take over, especially when it didn't have a football background these days, and start winning. It felt like when I started watching the games in 77, 78, 76, or whatever it was, that I saw them get it done in like 6 years. And I felt like it doesn't take this long. It doesn't take this long for progress, but it does take sometimes that long to win. The Detroit Lions have never won a Super Bowl. The Cleveland Browns have never won a Super Bowl. So winning a Super Bowl in and of itself, my favorite team as a kid, kind of made me go, it ain't got to be this hard. It could be easy. And then the Jaguars' history themselves, the Jaguars initially, in their first 5 seasons, they went to the AFC Championship game twice. They've been to the AFC Championship game 3 times. It's in 30 years. That's not terrible. It's like once every 10 years, but the problem is there's always this big fall off. It's never, okay, we almost got it. We're close. And after those first 5 years, they haven't really been consistently putting seasons together back to back to back to back to back to back. And I think really without the emotion, it's just because they've been really, really super, super loyal to too many people that they shouldn't have been loyal to. I found myself realizing something. The Super Bowl is fine, and if you get that, I'm not talking about it like it ain't a big deal. Don't try to make me LeBron James saying nothing about the ring era or anything like that. But what I am telling you is this. What they really want, what people really want is to be good, to be consistently competitive, to make a nice little 7, 8, 9, 10-year window where you're in the mix, that you are in the mix, that your program is good. Like right now, you always kind of feel like the Rams are going to be in the mix, right? You feel like Philly is always going to be in the mix. You feel like Baltimore and, of course, Kansas City. You feel like those teams are always going to be in the mix. And to a certain degree, even Tampa, they've learned through winning. They've learned how to do things a certain way where you always have this feeling that they're never going to be terrible. Green Bay kind of has that feeling too. Pittsburgh, of course, is the model of that kind of consistency. Well, that's what the Jaguar fans want. They want to get to the point where we are no longer a punchline. They want to get to a point, and I mean, it ain't going to be just 1 year. They want to get to a point where the consciousness of the fans around the world or around the NFL, all of the NFL fans, that they don't look at the Jaguars as a perennial doormat in the National Football League. And you need that kind of consistency. And that kind of consistency comes with structure. It comes with consistency in the coaching staff, consistency in the message. Folks are always concerned about, well, what if we lose this coach or lose that coach? Even before you start winning, the Jaguars are now positioned with the way that they are, that they're not going to reboot anything. You can take 2 or 3 coaches off that staff. They're just going to elevate people. They're going to do what the Rams and the 49ers have been doing for a decade. That's from structure. That's from having a plan. That's from having multiple layers to the way that you do business. And it all starts at the top. Shad had to get the right people in place. So lessons learned. Instead of worrying about that ring, worry about putting yourself in a situation consistently year after year with a process, a belief, and an understanding of what type of organization you are, who you are as an organization, what direction you're going in. And that's why it's so important that they bring guys in here and they say that all they want them to do is be nothing more than themselves, because that's exactly what they are and who they are. That is how you establish an identity. And for Shad Khan, he was the catalyst for all of that. No longer will the Jaguars be a team without an identity. No longer will the Jaguars be a team where they're just throwing stuff against the wall and see what sticks. And I say that all the time, and I quote that all the time, because you actually heard a coach say that with his own mouth. It wasn't Doug Peterson, it was Doug Marrone. How are you going to go out here and have these dudes ready to play when the thing that you are saying, you standing up behind a microphone saying stuff like, we're just going to throw out something out and see what sticks? No, this group of people, they know exactly what they're throwing. They expect it to stick. And if it doesn't, they got another method right behind it, or they have a contingency action right behind it that if it doesn't, they're going to be able to overcome it and get back on their square. You see, they're not just going to see. The Jaguars in the past have always, it felt like they were doing a gender reveal every week. Like, who the hell, what we going to see this week? We know it ain't going to turn out right, but what is the comedy show that's going to, what's the punchline? Where is it going to go off the track? Let me just wait for the car wreck. Or they might go out and beat the hell out of a team and beat Dallas and beat Baltimore in overtime. It's just like every week, it's like a gender reveal. What team will I see today? Well, now that is no longer the case. I think you're going to see a consistent team each and every week. Doesn't mean they're going to win all the games. Doesn't mean you ain't going to get mad. Doesn't mean I ain't going to come over here and be a grief counselor like I used to all the time. But what it does mean is I think you'll know what to expect week after week, game after game, play after play. And that's because they actually have a program. They are very intentional and deliberate about what they want to do. And even they admit they don't know what it's looked like, but they're along for the ride. And they're going to sit there and they're going to do it together. And they're going to do it to players. They're going to do it to media. And they're going to tell you exactly how they feel. And I told you how I feel about Shad Khan. And I think he has had a rebirth amongst the Jaguars faithful because of what he did this offseason. And kudos to him for doing that. Y'all want to be smarter about your team, make sure you tap in to Locked On NFL Scouting with Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs. They make you a smarter NFL fan, man, and everyone can use a little intelligence when it comes to the National Football League and their favorite team. Make sure you look at Locked On NFL Scouting wherever you get your podcast. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. We appreciate you joining us today here for 28 minutes. Y'all make sure you have a nice weekend, and we'll see you Monday morning here on Locked On Jaguars.